Hello and welcome to another episode of The Improvement Man. Today we are going to be looking at tracking benefits. This is a series of lean upskills for consultants and clients alike with non-manufacturing examples. In today's upskill, we are going to be talking about what is an improvement and a benefit, the types of benefits, the types of savings, common pitfalls I've come across, and finally there will be a case study which I'll base on a retail operation. As always, please feel free to share and reuse this video to help the community grow. And if you'd like to get in contact, you can reach me on helpmeimprovementman@gmail.com. So what are the benefits? It's more than just the money, right? Benefits are the tangible and non-tangible outcomes of a successful change project. So what do I mean by that? I've put the four most common types of benefits into categories. And this is the first being hard benefits, really easy to measure. Money, productivity, performance and time. Be a little careful with time because unless you can remove that from the process and it results in FTE savings, so full-time employee savings, you cannot class it as a hard benefit. Soft benefits, a little more difficult to measure, that being of happiness, less stress, some sort of emotion. The third being risk mitigation. I've used examples such as GDPR, so a regulation that has come in, so lean improvements are there to try and reduce the risk of a data breach, where in Europe you can be fined up to 10% of your company's turnover. Also, risk mitigation goes into things like the ability to not be sued. So that will come as reducing the risk of any litigation. And finally, we have customer related benefits. And this can be such things as net promoter scores or what their experience is, and that's how we would measure that. And the reason why I put this as a separate category rather than with the soft benefits, because everything in lean starts with the customer, because without the customer there would be no business. And therefore anything that we can do to increase the customer experience or how they interact with the business or being able to listen to them better should be a benefit on their own, in my opinion. So why should we capture the benefits? First and foremost, a lot of companies spend a lot of money on consultants and contractors, and it's the demonstration that the effort has been worthwhile in whatever project that they are doing. The next is to be able to motivate the staff to improve the culture and the working environment. Sometimes we need to capture it because we want to see what the return on investment is. And this isn't just in capital goods like a new printer or a new ERP system. This could also be the fact that new teams have been stood up. What the change that has occurred in the organization, is it having a return on the investment in the manpower that they are paying for? The next is to understand that all the outcomes have been achieved in a project. And finally, to improve health and safety. Types of savings: cost avoidance or cost saving. In my past, I've been pulled up to be told it's either one or the other, and a debate usually ensues. So if you've ever had that problem, hopefully this will make it a little clearer. So a cost avoidance is avoiding incurring costs in the future. The measures will never be reflected in the financial statements. So an example of this is if we know that a regulation is coming to hit a business in the next financial year, and we know that we'd have to put on overtime and put other measures in place to try and meet that regulation. If in the current time we are able to find a smarter solution where we wouldn't have to put on the overtime or wouldn't have to buy a new system to meet those regulations, that would be seen as avoiding the cost. The next one is a cost saving, and that's a little easier to track because that's any action that is reducing current spending, investment, or debt that can be shown in a financial statement. So anything that is happening in the real time right now. And that's generally speaking most of the Kaizen or improvement projects that you will come across. Common pitfalls, the ones that are easy to make in my experience. The first is not having communication or buy-in from the senior leadership team. And by this I mean that they are either unaware or not bought into what the project is entailing. And worst of all, they're not bought into what will happen when the project ends, so who will continue the savings in the future. The next is not having a baseline or measuring the benefit. And I've been in situations where some companies do not want to do a discovery phase to baseline. And what this means is that they are unable to show what the magnitude of the improvements are. So they will spend a lot of money on improvement programs, consultants or contractors, and will be unable to show what the benefits are. The next is not having finance being able to sign off on what has been delivered. And having finance do that adds a level of rigor and also gives the senior team a little bit more trust in what the benefits are if that has gone through some sort of financial scrutiny. The next is cultural stagnation. And what we mean by this is that in some instances where you have a very traditional business, it can lead to some quite awkward conversations if you are able to find great savings very quickly. But the question is why haven't these been done earlier? So just be a little careful about how you pitch that to the senior team. The next is about lead time reductions, and they do not necessarily produce a time saving unless you remove the full FTE. And the reason for this is that when people have a lead time or a waiting time, they don't spend that time doing nothing usually. What they would do is they would find something to fill that time. So just be very careful when you're quoting a full waiting time being reduced. If you are able to reduce it completely and they can work seamlessly end to end, then sure, claim it. But more often than not, they fill their time with other work. So the savings could be a little misunderstood. The next is not understanding what is valuable to the customer and to the employee. It's very easy to go onto site and think, right, we're here to save time, money, or to cut heads. And in many instances, I've been in a situation where they're not looking to do that. They're either looking to improve customer experience, to increase profitability without losing heads, or in, for example, Amazon's case, they're looking at total customer experience over bottom line, where they would happily put a parcel in a taxi and get that to the customer rather than writing an email to the customer saying, sorry, your parcel's being delayed, especially at Christmas time. The next is that the time box of capture is not agreed, i.e. you have made a saving for the first half of the year, but in usual terms, if costs can be attributed over 3 years, why not benefits as well? And so how much of a saving over 3 years are you actually making is worthwhile getting written down and agreed with finance before you start claiming benefits. The next is the polarizing of a particular benefit, i.e. some companies are all after the hard benefits, remove cost, remove cost, remove cost. And what happens in that situation is that you just get fatigue. People don't really want to keep driving cost out of it anymore because there's nothing in it for them. They're just working harder. On the other side, I've seen it where it's all about we need more soft benefits, i.e. what makes the employee happy. And conversely, because there was no senior communication or buy-in, the project got cancelled because there weren't enough hard savings made during the 1 year lifetime of the project. Finally, it is about not having accountability at the end of a project. So who are you handing over to the business to? That accountability is so important to be able to see that 3-year benefit in the future. Because once the practitioner, the lean practitioner or the consultant or the contractors move off site, there is a high possibility that they will go back to the old way of doing things. So having that accountability should be a good safeguard to prevent that. For the tools, I have included an example of a benefits tracker I've used in the past. And to explain it, starting from the left, I have the activity, be it a small Kaizen event, an improvement program, or something to do at risk. You next quantify the benefits, so how much benefit is being done, the units, the frequency, benefits to the end of the year. As I've mentioned before, it's easy to try and say that things run from mid-year to mid-year, but usually it's easier to do it from accounting periods. The 3-year benefit, the accountability of who's going to take over the benefit when you leave, and finally the audit date. And this is important because you can set the audit date at any time. So for particularly challenging projects where they have a high chance of slipping back to the old ways, it's probably a good idea to set an audit date maybe a month after you leave, and then 3 months, and then 6 months. So on to the case study. This is taken from an actual lean project where the name and the numbers have been changed to protect the anonymity of the people involved. So the director comes to me, the improvement man, and says, look, have a look at improving the retail operations department. I'm getting slaughtered by our customers at the quarterly meetings about a lack of stock. So the background of this is that there are 14 people at head office. The customers were part of a franchise to the parent company, and the head office was the parent company. People in the back office were stressed, overworked, and overtime is the norm because there was a headcount freeze. Customers were ringing up regularly to find out where their products were, and sometimes placing duplicate orders, so then they would have 2 orders that would come, and then they would return one at no extra cost, so there were double deliveries, for want of a better word, and the company had to pay for that extra non-value added task. The next was that it was a 14-day delivery cycle. Missing produce meant a financial loss to the customer. The company had its reputation at stake because it's known as one of the largest communication networks in the country. And finally, it was coming up to peak trading season, meaning if there was no stock, it would be a total disaster. So, as always, we first start with redefining the problem statement to give us a clearer vision for the project, a tagline that everyone could rally behind. And we chose right thing in the right place at the right time at the right cost. So when anyone asked us what we were doing, that would be the tagline that we would say, and everyone on the project was aligned to it. The next thing we did was process map to level 3 to understand the activities which we could optimize. The findings were that the head office accounted for a really small percentage of the actual lead time of 14 days, really only 2 to 4 hours. This meant that the lead time in this instance was a huge waste to the business, and much of that waste was process and system driven. Like every morning, people would be on the phones just taking emergency orders for the first 3 hours before they could get an order out to the third-party suppliers. We analysed the contracts as well to see what constraints were in place and what we could potentially flex and what levers we could pull. We carried out interviews and workshops, both with the customers and the third-party suppliers. We then went to the Gemba, and this is to different stores to try and understand ordering patterns and what inventory they had in place. And we found out there was no inventory limit set. So some stores were stockpiling goods because they had a handle on how much they would use and didn't have any faith in the system that their goods would arrive on time. And so we were able to set higher and lower limits, understanding the voice of the customer to be able to get a better forecast for product usage. We finally implemented a FIFO system where if they ordered, they're first in, first out. So if they ordered first, they'd get their goods first. And we've put cut-off time so we didn't have people trying to answer the phones for 4 hours after the cut-off time for people who were trying to get their order in as quickly as possible. And this was mainly due to the 14-day delivery time. So in the end, we were able to get rid of the emergency ordering facility because we were able to fulfill all orders within 48 hours. The results: 1.6 million uplift from the peak season directly due to the project. Order fulfillment cut from 14 days to 2. There was no more emergency ordering, meaning the people who were staying late because of the 3 to 4 hours in the morning where they had to receive emergency orders, we effectively created more capacity for them. We were able to streamline workflows, which meant that there was less stress both at the customers and the third parties and suppliers, which was interesting because for the last 3 to 4 years, the third parties and suppliers were staying late every Thursday and Friday because that's what the contract said. And the customer or the company was batching their goods through, so it meant that they had this huge swathe of stock to try and get out on 2 days. By having it first come, first served, they were able to break that down further and be able to cope with it within the working hours. So for the first time, we actually had positive feedback from third parties and suppliers, really the voice of the supplier, saying how eager they were to work with us as consultants and the company to be able to fulfill a win for the company, reducing the lead time from 14 days to 2, but also changing the third party suppliers' internal processes to help meet this ambition. So that was fantastic. And so for the overall stakeholder, where that person said they were getting slaughtered at the quarterly meetings, we got their complaints down to 0 for 2 consecutive quarterly meetings. And there was no more talk about stock shortages. So that was how we were able to track our benefits over a 6-month period. The most interesting thing about this project was that the principal stakeholder was incredibly proactive. So every barrier was effectively obliterated by the network director. It was incredible to see that person work. We were in meetings, and if we had a barrier, they would literally call up the person on the phone there and then and say, please come to my office, I want to get rid of this barrier right now. And that's probably one of the few times I've seen such an effective principal stakeholder. The things that didn't go so well was the initial points of negativity where people were saying we've always done that way, or the contract says no, without them even looking at the contract, or we've already done lots of lean and already got the process bang on. At some point in the project, we even had parts of the client's own team arguing against the interests of the company. And that was a shocking display of probably professionalism, but also they really care about what they do and they have a real connection and relationship with their suppliers. So without casting shade, we had to tackle some of those issues along the way. The final output of this was that the results of this project was used by the company for change as the poster child for change. The project manager that was with us through this project got a promotion, and the graduate who was helping me got a green belt out of it. So in all, a successful result. And this brings us to the end of the upskill. Feedback and comments are welcome below. If you wish to contact me, you can do so on helpmeimprovementman@gmail.com or on my LinkedIn. If you wish to receive notifications or thought that this was helpful, please subscribe below. Thank you very much and see you next time.